Good evening and welcome. Tonight we discuss an idea that has been long debated, the idea of social diversity in higher judiciary. Last week, the Law Minister told the Parliament that nearly 80% of the High Court judges appointed since 2018 belong to the general category. The representation of backward communities and minorities remains abysmal. Without a provision of a mandated reservation of judges in higher judiciary, how do we ensure adequate representation of those historically oppressed in the justice system? After all, inclusivity ensures more responsive institutions that champion the rights of all. And if you just take a look at the figures that the Law Minister talked about in Parliament, and if we can get that graphic up, I'll try and explain the breakup. So as per the Law Ministry, nearly 458 of the total number of judges, which is 604, those belong to the general category. In fact, it's a meager number, 18 only, which actually belong to the SC community. 9 belong to the ST community, 72 belong to the OBC community, and 34 are from minority communities. So the percentage share of those belonging to the SC and ST communities remains abysmal, and that is something that's been a cause for concern in the past couple of years. Joining me, I have a very special panel tonight. John Dayal, a writer and human rights activist, also with me. Ashutosh Srivastava, advocate of the Supreme Court, and Professor Ravikant Bahujan, who's a Bahujan Vicharak and a Dalit Chintak. Thanks very much, all. We'll be joined by the other guests in just a short while from now. But Ashutosh, beginning with you. This is something that's been long debated, diversity in higher judiciary, and these numbers that we can see on our screens are not very encouraging. What do you think is the way forward? Because as I mentioned earlier as well in my introduction, that there's no mandated reservation. How do we go about this? How do we ensure that there are adequate, there's adequate representation from those communities which are historically oppressed?
See, first of all, the articles like 124, 217 and 224 of the Constitution of India, they speak about, the appointment of judges to the Supreme Court and the High Court. And in none of these articles, there are any provision for the reservation of any particular caste or, any kind of people to be included into reservation. So there is no any reservation system in our constitution for the appointment of judges, either to the High Court or to the Supreme Court or likewise.
Right.
Now, when the Law Minister said that there should be inclusion of, the other category of people who are also competent to become or to be appointed as the judges. So that he doesn't say or speak about or promoting any reservation here, first of all, to make it clear. He means to say that whoever is competent to be appointed as the judges and belonging to a particular caste or, either in minority or maybe to scheduled caste, scheduled tribe or backward classes, they can also be picked up. They should also be given opportunity. So what he meant here was that someone should not be denied of any opportunity to be appointed just because that person belongs to a particular caste or community. So that was the basic idea. And if it is included that most of the people are included to be appointed as judges based on their competency, and considering that they belong to a particular caste or backward class or maybe a scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, if they are also appointed, it will be something which will have
absolutely,
a proper
Ashutosh, that point of merit, or that point of merit is very important, and we'll come to that in a bit. But in this particular case, where does the buck stop? Because the centre's argument mostly in when the issue of social diversity is brought up is that ultimately it's the names recommended by the collegium that can be taken up by the government. But if you deep dive into this entire issue, you also realize that the government is also in a sense accountable at some point, because generally it's High Court judges that get promoted to Supreme Court judges, or judges from subordinate courts and local courts that get promoted to the High Courts. And generally we see that at a time when their elevation process, that time comes when they can be elevated, there's some sort of a frivolous complaint that's filed against them, and by the time these complaints get resolved, it's too late and they get retired. So somehow it has to, again, the whole debate of the government collegium sort of working in tandem also, is important in this debate as well.
Yes, I do agree to some extent. See, the issue is that everybody should be given opportunity who are competent to be appointed as the judges. That is
Right.
the basic idea, irrespective of the caste or any community or anything. So it will be better that most of them are included in the appointment so that everybody gets the opportunity with their competency, as I said. But as you said that there are certain allegations which are leveled against some of the the people who are competent to be appointed as the judges. See, this is something different. I understand that it may take some time, and thereafter, if they are said to be not involved into anything which was made allegations about, so in those kind of cases there can be some rulings, or there can be some amendment in the law or system which can be brought in, by which their next dues, when they are eligible to become or to be appointed as the judges, that can be taken care of in due course of time, so that they don't lose the opportunity which had come on their way earlier. But I think the government is thinking in that way, so that many of them can be included, so that nobody is left out and everybody gets the opportunity to be appointed as the judges. And judicial system also becomes it can cover most of the categories of people, so that it is not it becomes a kind of justified
Absolutely.
way of appointment. Yes.
Right.
So this is what is the
And as you were mentioning earlier as well, Ashutosh, judges of the Supreme Court and the High Court are appointed under Articles 124, 217 and 224 of the Constitution, just for clarity of our viewers,
Yes.
that do not provide for reservation of any caste or class, even though
Yes.
the National Commission of Scheduled Castes has said that the 49.5% reservation must be followed in the appointment of judges as well. That's something that's been their request, that's something that's been their demand. But as an advocate of the Supreme Court, do you think that some sort of reservation when it comes to judges, will that benefit us? Of course, that point of merit and competence you talked about is important, but do you think reservation in this particular scenario is largely going to benefit us?
No. See, there is no question of any reservation here. Even the government is not talking about any reservation
Yes.
for the appointment of any judges.
Yes.
See, the government is only saying that whoever is competent, so the other caste or community or the backward classes, they should also be given opportunity. That doesn't mean the reserved category. It is basically targeting and saying that just one person who is belonging to a backward class should not be denied an opportunity to be appointed as the judge of the Supreme Court or the High Court.
Fair point.
So the
And
idea
John
is different here.
John Dayal is now also joining us on the broadcast. He's a writer and human rights activist. Thanks very much, sir, for joining us on NDTV. We've been discussing about this very important point of merit and competence, and something that I'd like to quote here, and something that I think is important as far as this particular debate is concerned, that the National Commission to review the working of Constitution, headed by retired Chief Justice of India, he said in his report of 2000 that over 50 years of progress in education, however tardy, has certainly produced adequate number of persons of the SC, ST and OBC communities in every state who possess the required qualification, having necessary integrity, character and acumen required for judges of Supreme Court and High Court for appointment as judge of the superior judiciary. That's an important point, Mr. Dayal, isn't it? Because it's not like there's unavailability of candidates. There are people there who are very capable, but there needs to be some sort of a push that is required as far as this particular debate is concerned to actually ensure adequate representation, because, as I said, there's no unavailability of candidates.
There's a very famous cartoon which graphically tells you how do you get equity and equality of opportunity. One is to put them at the same ground level and see if they can be hoisted up. The other is to give each one a certain handicap, as it is called in golf and chess and many other things, so that people start at a level playing field. The level playing field has consistently been missing, not only on the issue of judiciary, but also on many other issues where things come in which are not tangible, not measurable. Even when you were quoting the former Chief Justice, you quoted about education. So those are degrees. You quoted about experience. Those can be measured. But then you come into other areas of quality, of moral fiber, of character, of whatever else that you want, which are intangibles. And it is there that in the selection process, these people are denied an opportunity. The same can be said for, say, in the armed forces, for instance, where
Mr. Dayal, another important point is that it's been the case historically that there is this sort of misplaced representation as far as, people from the minority communities and the backward castes are concerned, as far as, representation in judiciary is concerned. Absolutely. So what really are the reasons? What really are the reasons as far as this is concerned? Because, it's been the case ever since. In fact, it's very famously, it's also been written that, Brahmins, or 1/19th of the nation's population, held 33 of the judgeships. So what are the historical reasons when it comes to, people from the SC/ST communities not being represented adequately as far as higher judiciary is concerned?
it doesn't take rocket science to tell you that it is not that castes have a particular inbuilt intellectual potential category. It is the opportunity they have been given. The process of selection of judges, even say in the British courts, there was a bhaichara, it was a community, it was a club, and the local landlord, the big shot locally, was automatically the magistrate also. So the same tenor, the same tone comes in here. The ruling group, whichever it is, elects and selects its own, and it becomes a very incestuous type of exercise. And you can give it whatever name. You can call it college, you can call it any selection committee. But when this incest comes in, when you are choosing from among your own, what was used to be called uncle system, there were some bad names and there were some decent names to define this club, this college from which they were choosing. And largely, whether it was the old ICS or other systems, they were choosing their own.
And this, of course, also as a parliamentary panel continues to exist, and in the sense that it's really failing as far as representing people from the historically oppressed communities are, is concerned. But my last question to you, Mr. Dayal, would be that how important is it to have people from the SC/ST, OBC communities, from minority communities in our higher judiciaries? Because it's said often that more inclusive and well represented institutions are often more responsive. So how important is it to have this adequate representation as far as rights of those people who are historically oppressed are concerned?
I'll give you in a nutshell. Inclusiveness is of the mind, of the thought process. As it is in any judiciary system, particularly in India's system, the Supreme Court is, to that extent that it affects me, the bench in particular, which is deciding my case. It is not all 36 judges.
Yes.
So you can't have one Dalit judge in every two judge bench or 3-judge bench. We are not talking of that. But what happens when you are a woman, when you are Dalit, when you are Muslim, when you are Christian, and you are Sikh? Over tea time, on social occasions, on conferences, on larger benches, the Chief Justice and the senior judges get to listen to the voice of the margins, even from among their own brother and sister judges.
Yes.
It is that moment that the collective conscience of the Supreme Court wakes up to the desires, aspirations, and fears of women, of Dalits, of Muslims, of Christians, of Sikhs, of LGBTQ, and all those things. If only it was represented by Brahmins and Kayasthas. All my friends and several of my relatives are from this caste. So I'm not demeaning any of them. What I'm saying is, if just them, they will know about festivals and functions and rituals of their community.
Absolutely.
But you put a clue on how to greet people on Good Friday or Easter or Muharram, which is today.
That's right, and collective conscience is what you said very adequately, very appropriately. Thanks so much, gentlemen, for joining us on the broadcast today. A very important debate, a very important discussion that really concerns all of us and affects us all.